So then what happened after the Uranium One thing? Well, there was Benghazi, where despite having months of knowledge in advance that attack was going to take place, she decided to reject all the requests for greater military presence on base or at the embassy. How does that work? You know something bad is going to happen, and then you decide not to stop it. This is qualified? And what's worse, the night of the attack, she decided to withhold requests for military aid for the individuals under attack with the expectation or with the desired effect that Obama would look weak on the world stage. That he allowed an attack on American civilians and American personnel to happen. So this is part of the WikiLeaks releases. She deliberately sabotaged Obama at every step of the way as a representative of his government, of his administration. This is what she did. And now you people are saying that she's qualified, that despite the track record of benefiting only herself at the expense of everyone around her, including Obama, the entire administration, the American people, the lives of those lost in Benghazi. Then you have the email server scandal, where she's proven that despite 30 years in federal government work, she still doesn't know what a classified or confidential document it is. What the hell is wrong with you? There is no standard by which she is to be labeled competent or capable. She's not qualified for this position. Track records indicate future success or failure. Her track record is that she is only looking out for herself. Doesn't give a shit about anyone else. So, as an intellectual, you have to ask yourself, what's the reason you're voting for her? Is it, and the only thing I'm coming up with is that you're afraid of Trump and that she's a woman. Now, I can agree that women should have been in the Oval Office at this point. I'm all for it. But out of a country with a population of like 370 million individuals, I'm assuming maybe half of them are women. There are literally 184 million women who are better suited for this office than she is. And you didn't elect her. As an intellectual, you have to realize that back in February, Bernie Sanders was polling at much greater numbers than Trump. He was going to win hands down with nothing done. He didn't have to do a thing other than get through the election. And this thing would be in the bag for the Democrats by every standard imaginable. But what happened? She rigged the Democratic primary so she could get the nomination because she didn't want Bernie Sanders to go ahead and gain that step of power. She was more intent on her own glory as opposed to beating Trump. So now you have a neck-and-neck election between two terrible entities when this one could have been ended long ago by having Bernie Sanders as the nominee. What's your last one? That you're afraid of Trump being a fascist? Well, you don't seem to understand how fascism works. See, you have to have four things in place for fascism to take hold. Number one, you have to have control of the state media, or the state has to run the media. Number two, you have to have some broad support amongst all the political individuals in your government. Number three, you have to have a history or a desire to instigate war, to justify a ballooning military force. Number four, you have to have the top political office in the country, because without that, the other four are just irrelevant. So, does Trump have the support of the media? No, doesn't. Everyone in the fucking media hates him. CNBC, MSNBC, all of them hate him. Even Fox News is kind of like, I don't want to touch that turd. They don't want him to be in office. So he doesn't have the media wrapped up because you need the media to confuse and cover up what you're doing to the rest of the population. Number two, does he have the backing of the political leaders in this country? Hell no. Democrats hate him. Republicans hate him. He embarrassed the top 10 Republicans in the country in this primary. Okay, so he's missing two of those three. Next thing you have to have is a history of initiating military conflict. So Trump's message that, the countries that we're protecting with our military need to start paying a bigger share of what they're getting, that's not really instigating military conflict. And he wasn't all that for the war in Iraq either. Look it up. And don't go to that bullshit PolitiFact or whatever, partisan hackery. Next up, the only thing he might get is he might become the president of this country. So out of the 4 you need to institute fascism, you don't have 3 of them. So let's look at the other side of the equation. Does Hillary have the overwhelming support of the media? WikiLeaks already proved that to be the case. Does she have support, bipartisan support, from those actors in government? Well, yeah, she does. You have senators, Republican senators, endorsing her for the election. Okay, what else isn't required? Does she have a track record of initiating military conflict? Yes, she does. So, of the 4 things you need to turn this state or this country into a fascist dictatorship, what does she need at this point to make it happen? Just become the president. So this is what history tells us. If you would have bothered with history and looked at the very methods by which fascism is created, Hillary Clinton is more of a threat for a fascist nation than Donald Trump is. There's a difference between having nationalist pride and subverting the population and generating a fascist state. Because that's the exact same thing that, what was his name? Hitler ended up doing. Control the media, to lie to the masses. What else does he do? Justify military force. He has it all. He also used violence to intimidate political opponents. Any dissenters had their asses beat, which happens at every single one of the Trump rallies. And what happens now? Black Lives Matter is saying that they're going to attack or they're going to go on a rampage if Donald Trump is elected. It looks like the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse are already upon us. So figure this shit out. Because as an intellectual, you're required to look at the facts, look at the trends, look at the causes of terrible situations. And you're supposed to take a path that avoids those. Yes, Donald Trump is an asshole. Yes, he is sexist. But he's been the only one who's been campaigning on the big topic issues that are addressing the fears and needs of the members of this country. So figure it out. If you're an intellectual, you can either vote for Hillary and basically tell the rest of the world that you don't give a shit about the facts or reality or what's best for this country. You're only voting because you're scared, because you're a little pussy. So figure this out. There are other options available, but you decide that you're going to go ahead and vote for the person who's guilt-tripped you and used fear to justify voting for. That's not intellectualism. That's catering to emotional pleas to justify why you're making a bad decision. It's far better to lose for the right reasons than to win for the wrong ones.